Hello and welcome to the video. So today I'm going to do a quick talk about how I built my career in data starting from absolute scratch, knowing nothing about data science or data analytics. And then over the course of 10 years, how I went from nothing to now being the director of data at an e-com company. And so it was a long path, not an easy path, but the goal of the video is to potentially show you guys who are interested in building a career in data through hearing my story and then thinking, oh, maybe, I could replicate doing this and that to try to build your own career in data. Okay, so let's get going. So originally, I never intended to get into a career in data. I was right after high school going to college, I went one semester to a college in New York called Stony Brook University. I was taking gen ed classes. At that point, I was 18, 19 years old. Had no idea really what I wanted to do in terms of a career and was just taking college classes, but really at the end of the day, just kind of wasting time. In hindsight, all that was just a waste of time because I didn't really know what I was doing. Now, I left that college in New York after one semester and transferred to the local town college that I was from called UMass Lowell. And now at UMass Lowell, I was there for a few years and I got thinking more towards when I was like 20, yeah, about 20 or so, what could I do to build a career? And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about what are some of my natural strong habits that I'm just kind of intuitively good at. And what came up was math. So naturally, I've always been good enough. I've been good at math. It has always just come to me pretty easy without having to put in a lot of work. So I took that into account, and then I was researching careers, and I came across data science, as I'm sure a lot of you guys have as well, because data science always tends to rank kind of high for salaries and such. But at that time, I wasn't really thinking about the salary because I was studying just economics, and making that transition into data science seemed like a huge gap that almost was impossible because I was so far down the economics track already. Now I'm about 20 years old in UMass Lowell, in Lowell at college, and once again just kind of floundering around, a little bit thinking about career, but not too much. And I was getting a little restless. I was a little too close to home, and so I made another transfer again. I ended up getting a good scholarship to this college called New College of Florida in Sarasota. So I went there. A lot of college kids go through that, but they feel like they need to go far away just because college is this big thing in America when it really shouldn't be. But I fell into that whole trap and did the whole thing once again for only one semester. And when I was there at New College of Florida, now I'm at this College of Florida, and still not really knowing what to do. Like, I took ridiculous classes. One was organic gardening, things like that. Just absolute stuff that was just kind of, I really wasn't thinking about trying to use college as a tool to set myself up for a better future. I was just a passenger along for the ride. And which in hindsight, if I could go back, put my 30-year-old brain now into my 18-year-old head, would do things completely different. I would, if we want to talk about it, I would do comp sci from the get-go, then do a master's in hard science, and go into a career field from there. But that's bygones be bygones. Now, down at this College of Florida, I heard that they were releasing a master's in data science in like 1 year or so. And that piqued my interest in data science a little bit more because I liked the area, I liked the college a lot. And it got me thinking a little bit more about data science, trying to understand a little bit more what it is. And now this is around the time when I realized that if I want to try to do this master's in data science to become a data scientist, I need to learn some coding skills. Like math, I'm pretty good at. Coding, at this point, I really knew nothing about. And so, the next chapter in the story is I had this epiphany that I'm going to do this master's in data science program, but I want to finish my undergraduate degree as quickly as possible because at this point I was like 21 years old, and I had finally realized that for the last 3 years I had really just been wasting time being a passenger along for the ride and not really working towards something that I want to be working towards. Yeah, I had decided one night that I was going to go all in on this data science program. I got obsessed with data science. After hearing about this master's program, I kind of went down this big track of like, oh, what is data science? It's solving hard business problems using logic, code, and math. And that sounded really interesting to me. And I'll be honest, like I fell into the little trap of, like, yeah, those salaries are pretty good. That's something I could build a career on. And so I fell down that path. And so I left Florida, went back to UMass Lowell. And at that point, my goal was finish college ASAP, as soon as possible, and pick up coding skills. So that's what I did. I did a lot of free YouTube tutorials and free Code Academy courses on SQL and Python. I focused really just on SQL, Python. I did a little bit of R here and there, but it mainly was just SQL and Python. And so I did the self-study for that. I ran through the rest of my bachelor's degree as fast as possible, taking a whole bunch of classes. I think one semester I took something like 8 classes once just to try to get it done and graduate early. And so I did that. I graduated early. I had learned a little bit of SQL and Python, but luckily it was enough to get me my first internship at a medical device company in the local area because I had picked up enough Python and I had some good networking connections, luckily for my dad as well. He helped me out a lot there. And I know not everybody has that luxury, but luckily I was in the situation where my dad could help me get my first internship, which kind of opened up the door to coding in a professional environment. And so that's what I did for my final summer. Right after I graduated, I did this internship at this medical device company working on some log data. It wasn't data science related, but it was more software engineering related to really hone up my coding skills. Now, after that internship ended, I went back down to Florida and I did this master's in data science program. To be honest with you, I was completely unprepared for this master's. To be honest with you, I probably was the weakest person in terms of skill set in the cohort that I was with. So basically, I was good enough at math. However, my coding skills just left a lot to be desired. And the reason is because a lot of the people in my cohort had done full degrees in computer science or were somewhere even actually working as software engineers professionally and then came in to do this master's program. Now, I had just tried to teach myself SQL and Python, and I did it just by self-learning, and it was okay at best. It definitely wasn't where it needed to be. The internship the summer before had helped a lot, but really my skills were pretty low on the totem pole, and I had some real hard issues with classes like algorithms and databases because I had never gone so deep in terms of working at databases on an index level or going deep on algorithms or getting down that hole of leak code or all that. Like a lot of these guys I went to grad school with were great at pure software engineering, and I was not in that camp. So the first semester was a ton of work for me just to try to cover my butt and get up to speed as fast as possible. And it was really hard. A lot of late nights. I'm pretty frustrated myself. Now I'm like, what? I'm probably 22, 23-ish abouts. And I was really just trying to make up for the lost skill gap of coding, pure coding, mainly in Python. My SQL was okay, but my Python was really not that good. And so that's what I did. I went ham. I went really hard for that whole semester, just trying to keep my grades at average. And luckily I did that. My coding got better as time went on. Honestly, the master's program, the people, the teachers were incredible, absolutely incredible. My peers in the cohort were super helpful as well. Like, even though I was definitely on the weaker side of skills, they would really help me learn and get up to par, both in terms of databases and algorithms. Like for me, this was all brand spanking new, but for some people, they had been doing this stuff for years already. And so at this point, after my first years of the master's degree program, is when I realized, wow, I probably should have done computer science from the get-go. But little tangent here, you know, a lot of kids in high school are shipped off to college right away without really knowing what they want to do. And by doing so, you can waste a lot of time and money just being a passenger in the car seat as college just goes forward and you don't really know what you're studying. You don't have an end goal you're working towards. And at that point, probably like 23 at this point, I really regretted not studying computer science as my undergrad because I had to do so much catch up now that I realized I really want to pursue data science professionally and seriously. Okay, and so after my first year of the master's program, I was able to get another internship at the company I had interned at before, but this time in data science. So I was a data science intern at this medical device company. And at that company, I did a really cool project working on some predictive failure modeling based off of log data that these medical devices would spit out to us. And so basically, I was trying to make an algorithm that would predict if a machine was going to fail based off of trends that we could identify from the log data that these machines would produce. And I met a great mentor at that time. His name was Rob, about 10 years older than me, really smart, and really helped me learn the corporate way, how to structure my code better, and it really helped me improve my code to make it like shippable in a production environment. Because beforehand, it really was just kind of scratch. Okay, now I go back to school after the summer, finish up my master's program, and as part of the master's program, you have to do a practicum, which is basically like a co-op or an internship. And so I did that co-op and internship at that same company as well, continuing on the predictive analytics modeling that I was trying to do before. The project was a lot of fun. It wasn't super successful at the end because the algorithm didn't fully work, but that was due to a bunch of things based off of the training data we were using mainly. And now at this point, I'm like 24, maybe 25, 24-ish, and I've got my bachelor's in economics, master's in data science, and I'm ready to look for my first job. And now back at that time, about 6, 7 years ago, it was a lot easier to just cold apply online and get internships, interviews, and job opportunities. And that's what I did. I went pretty big into Indeed, LinkedIn jobs, just kind of looking online for data science opportunities in the Boston area because I'm originally from the Boston area. And then luckily, only after about a week or two of looking, I got an interview request from this company called Lovepop. That's the company I'm still with now. Went to the interview, passed all the assessments and all that, and then got the job. And now my first job was at the associate data science level. So I was an associate data scientist. Now, if you're not familiar with like corporate titles and all that, the associate data scientist is the lowest level of data science that you could be. And that is because I was brand new. Like even though I had done a master's degree program, I was definitely at the entry level role there. Okay. And so I got my first job and I'm working in Boston, and my main projects that I'm working on are really working with a demand planning algorithm. So basically the company I got the job with, they sell products online and they sell a lot of different types of products online. And so the business problem was we need to make an algorithm to tell the factory how many products of what type we need to produce. So basically we have like a list of 100 products. We need to spit out a semi-accurate report to the factory to say we need to produce 100 products of product 1, 200 products of product 2, and so on and so on. And we sent that on a weekly basis to the factory. At that time, my boss, who was my new mentor at that time, was a super smart guy, and he really helped me along. So the state where I'm at in terms of skills at this point is SQL, I'm good to go. The mathematical understandings of data science, I'm good to go. My Python skills still needed a little bit of work. And so he really helped me learn how to write really good structured Python code that could be shipped and used in production ready environments. And so that's really what I focused on for my first year at the company, was getting my Python skills really good. And so that demand planning algorithm ended up working quite well and was really quite accurate. That earned me a lot of goodwill in the company. And so after I had proved myself for a year in the company by contributing to that algorithm, making recommendations to improve, handling some ad hoc requests, I had built up goodwill, proven that I was responsible, and proven that I was competent. And so after 2 years of being an associate data scientist, I was promoted to data scientist. And so after being promoted, the main thing is you just take on more responsibility. So at this point, I started working a little bit more cross-functionally with teams, taking on a lot more ad hoc analytics work, and then doing a lot of dashboarding. So at that time, we had a pretty small data team, and the dashboarding and reporting kind of fell in the realm of the data science team in terms of responsibility. So I built a lot of dashboards in this tool called Periscope, which was a pretty good BI tool at the time. I think they got acquired and have a new name now, but I forget the name. And so at this point, this is really where I developed a lot of data analytics skills by doing a lot of reporting, ad hoc work with the marketing team. And even at this point is also when I started picking up some data engineering skills, because I was building some pipelines to get data from raw sources into our data warehouse, which was Snowflake at the time, and writing a lot of Python scripts using Airflow to automate these data extraction jobs. And so after getting promoted, my responsibilities kind of opened up. So I wasn't just focusing on the data science demand planning problems. I was doing some data analyst work and some data engineering work. And so time went on for another about year or two. I had built up even more goodwill because I was doing these data analyst roles well and doing these data engineering tasks well, and end up getting promoted again to senior data scientist. And really at senior data scientist, this is when I started working a lot more independently with cross-functional teams one-to-one directly. Before that, a lot of my work was incoming and being assigned to me from a manager using sprint planning and all that. Due to a little bit of restructuring in the company and kind of shifting down to a smaller team, the opportunity arose for me to interact face to face a lot more cross functionally as the point person with the operations team, with the marketing team, with the finance team, and building a lot more higher priority, highly sensitive tasks in regards to working with finance reports, building marketing efficiency analytics, taking on website analytics, and just kind of increasing the breadth of responsibility that I had at the time. And now another year goes by. I'm continuing to take on all these new tasks, and so far I'm doing good. I'm handling it all and proving to the people higher up that I'm capable, competent, and able to do the roles. And now this is at the point where my original mentor, he left and went to a different job, and I was at the point where I really wanted to try to get into management, build my own team, manage a team, and run a team because that just seemed like the logical next step in terms of climbing the career ladder. However, unfortunately, just based off of the way the team was constructed, there was already two managers ahead of me, and there really didn't seem to be the opportunity to get my own team at that company. And so, unfortunately, for better or for worse, we had another round of layoffs, and the manager above me at the time got laid off. And the executives then promoted me to manager of the data team. You know, it's always sad when layoffs occur and people lose their jobs. However, I think the reason I benefited from that situation was one, I had built up goodwill of proving to be competent, responsible over the course of 4 years, and I had indicated to the executives that I wanted to become a manager and I'd like to continue like climbing the ladder. Luckily, I think I had built up enough goodwill with the executives at the time that when the layoffs occurred, they chose to keep me and chose for me to run and then build the team again. And I think the only reason they did that is because I had proven over a long period of time that I was responsible and good at the job, and I had also communicated interest that I would like to lead a team. And so now we're at the stage where I am a manager. And as a manager of the team, we ended up rebuilding the team again after getting another round of funding. And so we built the team again, and I hired the full team, hired a data scientist, data analyst, and data engineer, brought them on, taught them all the code base. At this point, this is the trickier part because you have to transition from being a pure tech guy to being in management and managing a team, which is definitely a little bit of a learning curve. It is not a super easy transition to go from solely focusing on your projects and building your reports to then managing a team. And the way I tried to help myself get better at being a manager is I read a few management books and I tried to spend the time to understand the skill sets that it takes to be a good manager. And for me, what I found was communication is super key. Building relationships with the people who are working for you is super important. And then building cross-functional relationships in the business with the other business leaders that you're working with is super duper important. And to be honest with you, this was where it was a little bit of a growing pains for me because at the time, my communication skills were good in terms of the tech world, but they weren't up to the standard of where they needed to be. And this is something I'd recommend for anyone who's getting into management is really try to over communicate. Document everything that you can and proactively share what you're working on with the wider org whenever you can. So you don't run into pitfalls where people think you're working on one thing, but in fact, you're actually working on another thing. But in my mind, over communicating really kind of can close this gap and make sure that everyone is on the same page so that you and your team are working on exactly what is expected by the higher ups in the org. Okay, and so that went on for another year and a half. It's now me managing the team. We're taking on a larger breadth of responsibility, recommending data projects, architecting overall systems, and owning systems completely. Owning renewals is what I'm doing, managing the team. And I'm still, because we're a small team of just 3 or 4, I was and am still very much involved in the day-to-day technical development of everything. And then after about a year and a half of being a senior manager, I got promoted to director. And at director, pretty much the main change there is just the scope of what you're working on. And so at director, I ended up just taking on a little bit more responsibilities, pretty much everything and all things data and analytics related to the company. So pretty much business intelligence, data analytics, data science, and data engineering all kind of fell under that wing. Now at the director level, what I find myself doing more and what you're really just expected to do more is drive the business forward by recommending and doing projects that are significant steps in improving the overall business and especially the function of the business that you're owning. And so that's where I'm at today. I've been a director of data analytics for a year, still learning a ton, and I'm trying to get better, especially at the communication side of things and driving things forward. I think there's always room for improvement there, and there's always things that you can get better at. But in a snapshot, that is my career path. That's kind of how I went from knowing absolutely nothing about data to now being a director of data and analytics at an e-com company. And so the learnings that I would take away from my story and path are a few things. Let's start at the very beginning. So, one, if you're just beginning and looking to get into a career in data, I'd recommend do a bachelor's in computer science. That will set you up for success in anything technical downstream. I really lacked that because I did the bachelor's in economics. I was good at math, but I didn't have that pure computing understanding that I really needed, especially when I got to the master's program, to be successful and fully grasp everything that was being thrown at me in the master's program. So if you can, highly recommend do a bachelor's in computer science to begin with, and then you can either one, get into industry, or two, go to do your then master's or specialty in data science, data analytics, data engineering, whatever kind of specialty you're interested. Second recommendation early on is it's never too early to try to get real world experience. Try to find an internship as soon as possible, ideally something that pays you as well too. I definitely benefited here because my dad already had a lot of connections and kind of helped me get my first internship. And I know not everyone's in that situation, but what I would recommend is if you can really kind of proactively, as soon as you're learning skills, apply to internships and network to try to get your foot in the door so that you can actually be programming and contributing in a real world professional environment because that helps in a few ways. One, that'll make you realize if you either like what you're doing or not. And then two, there's a real shift change between coding that you produce in school versus coding that is going to be accepted and approved in a PR in a professional environment. They're almost two night and day things. You really have to get your code up to great quality to be able to be a successful participant in the business world. And in college, you can kind of just get by writing kind of janky scripts, which will 100% not fly in the business world. Now, deciding what type of company you want to begin your career at, there's a few paths here. So you either can go up the startup route or go down the Fortune 500 route. I ended up going down the startup route, and I'm really glad I did. Now, this is not for everybody, but if you want to learn a lot fast, the startup route I think is the way to go. The Fortune 500 route has a lot more red tape that can kind of make it slower to get promotions and slower to stand out. In the startup world, because it is so kind of hyper competitive to a degree, it is really easy to tell who is performing and who is not performing. And if you are performing, you can kind of climb up the rungs of the ladder pretty quickly. Now, a tip for when you get your first job is try to establish yourself as someone in the company who is competent, capable, and reliable. That gives you a lot of goodwill. And you won't prove that from the get-go. You need to have time, usually at least 6 months once you start a new job to get up and running, where you have the opportunity to prove to people through consistent behavior of getting projects done well that you are competent, capable, and reliable. And then say you're looking to get promoted up the technical track, my recommendations for doing that is try to take on more and more work when you can. Sometimes you're going to have so much work that you don't have the ability to take on new work, but when you see opportunity and you want to get higher in the company, get to the next level, try to take on more work and proactively ask for more work. You'll get more work, but also you need to advocate for yourself. You need to tell your manager when you take on new work that you are volunteering for these assignments, that you're volunteering to take on this new work, and then being vocal about taking on the new projects you do and then doing them well and communicating out after you've done a new project well to your overall team so people know that you're taking on this new work, that you're being proactive. You can't just take on the new work and expect people to see it. You also have to verbally advocate for yourself as you're trying to rise through the ranks. So if you do that enough, you volunteer to take on new responsibilities, you proactively look for new opportunities, take on projects and take on tasks, and you vocally communicate out to people that you're doing these new tasks well and that you want to go to the next level, eventually after a year or so, probably two, it depends really what role you're in, you'll get promoted. And so you can basically just do that to climb the corporate ladder. Just look for opportunities to take on new responsibilities, take them on, do them well, and then communicate out to people above you in the company that you're taking on new responsibilities and that you're doing it well. And now this is a trickier part that I've had in my career, and that's transitioning from the technical route into management. So this is, in my opinion, the trickiest part to get right of building a successful data career is going from being pure tech and going into management from there. You need to get a few things here right to do this well. So one, you need to advocate that you want to become a manager. You need to, I mentioned this earlier in the video, but no one's going to advocate on your behalf. You need to vocally advocate and make it clear to people above you in the company that you want this new role or that you want to become a manager. Two, you need a bit of luck. The way it worked out for me was I had been vocal for about 6 months prior that I was looking for a management opportunity. I'd love the opportunity here, if it's possible, to become a manager and run my own team. And so the executives at the time, because I had built up good rapport with them over time, I proved myself to be a competent, capable individual, knew that I was competent, and now they also knew that I wanted to become a manager. And then secondly, there was just a bunch of luck involved. Unfortunate circumstances, but a layoff came, and that's when my manager was laid off, and it opened up the door for a management position. And I think because I had, one, proven myself to be a good employee, and then two, advocate that I wanted to be a manager, is what helped me get that first management opportunity. And unfortunately, at a lot of companies, you may not be able to transition from tech leader to management just because there may be enough people in front of you, especially at a Fortune 500 company. There may be a lot of red tape that prevents you from ascending to management super easily. And if that is the case in your situation, the harsh reality is that you may just need to change companies to find that opportunity. Sometimes there's not always going to be the opportunity at your own company, and this is where the luck is involved. If there is an opportunity due to luck or fate, then that's great. Advocate for yourself to get that position and then try to get it. But if there's not that opportunity at your company, you may need to change companies to get that opportunity. You can definitely get this opportunity, but you just need to be very relentless to a degree. You need to really advocate for yourself and keep knocking on the door until you get the opportunity to become a manager. And so now let's talk about being a manager. I think there's a bunch of things here that are important to be a good manager, because there's a difference from just being a manager, but being a good manager. And a few things are here. You really need to put yourself in the shoes of the people who are working for you. You want them to like working for you. They need to be productive, but it's so much better, and the relationship for everybody will be better if you have a good rapport with the people reporting to you. And then two, be very careful about the people you hire when you're building a team to bring onto your team. Really, the pain of hiring a bad candidate and then having to go through like 6 months of them proving out that they're not a good employee and then having to offboard them and is a really bad reflection of you in terms of your standing in the company. And so I would really say be very careful about making your first few hires. Make sure you get them right. Make sure you actually want to work with the person you're interviewing. Make sure that you have full support of the people who are in the interview process to go forward with that candidate. Make sure that you are confident that that candidate that is interviewing for the role you have open is going to be a great fit, because the negatives of trying to deal with somebody who's in a role that they maybe shouldn't be, it is just a headache. And I unfortunately had to learn that the hard way one time. And if you can learn from my lessons, your team is a reflection of you. If you hire a poor performing team, that is going to come back and bite you, because the executives and the higher ups in the company will say, this guy or girl isn't running their function of the business well. That is just not a situation you want to find yourself in. And so overall recommendations are build a great rapport with your employees, and then two, hire and make sure you get the correct candidate for the job opening. And then the third one I'd say is try to build a very good rapport with the other cross-functional managers in the business so that you have a good working relationship with them. This takes time too. In data, trust is super important. You want people and other leaders in the company to trust you and have trust in your team, and that comes from time and projects being done and delivered well. And so trust can be burned super fast, and it takes a long time to build trust. So as soon as you become a manager, really try to focus on the relationships and building good relationships with your other peers in the business. And then the way you can prove trustability and reliability is by delivering on very good quality projects to cross-functional stakeholders. Okay, going from manager to director, I would say the biggest ones here are really you just need to be recommending projects of large magnitude that will have a significant positive impact on the bottom line in the business. So the higher up in the company you go, the more you focus on the deliverability and effect of projects on the bottom line. So this is all finance and numbers here. So you need to be doing and recommending and executing on large initiatives that have a net positive and ideally quick impact on the bottom line. This is either through recommending better profitability strategies, or also on the cost side, recommending ways and implementing ways that you can reduce costs. But really at the director level, that's when you need to be really driving the company forward through these large scale initiatives. And even if you're still very much technically involved, like I am still pretty much technically involved on projects on day-to-day operations, the expectation at the director level is that you are working on projects and also having your team execute on very large scale projects that seismically have a positive impact on driving the business forward. So that is my career story. That is my career path that has spanned over the course of about probably a little longer than a decade now, 11 years, 10 years, going from absolute scratch, knowing nothing about data, knowing nothing about data science, data analytics, to now being a director of data and analytics at an e-com company. And so I hope you learned something, maybe tips along how you can kind of shape your own career trajectory based off the path that I've had, maybe some common pitfalls to avoid so that you don't have to learn lessons the hard way. And overall, I just wanted to give a snapshot into what a realistic career trajectory can look like, going from nothing to a full-fledged career in data. I hope you liked the video, and I will see you in the next one.